I got another question here for you, Dale, and I
Right.
know it's a good one, and I know a lot of people want to ask it. We heard it a couple places, and I know you've heard it before as well. It's about how do you engage a manager or somebody else that's not a generous listener, or the on our chat here today, somebody asked it in another way. How do we encourage others to listen more mindfully? Besides being a good model of mindfulness, the art of listening, how can an employee help a colleague be a better engaged leader? I think you kind of get the essence of the question.
Well, because there's a couple of different frameworks there. That's a really great question. Couple of great questions. Um, I guess I'll say we generally speaking, we can't force another person to become something they're just not ready to become or unwilling to become. I think that's the first thing I should say. We can't force people to become better listeners. We have to behave in such a way that they find how we are being attractive. And by attractive, I mean magnetic. They want to be like us. And that happens through modeling. So in the workplace, I have had managers who said to me, tell me how I can tell this employee to be a better listener. And I say, well, okay, then what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to engage in conversation with this person a couple of times a week for several weeks. But what you're going to do is you're going to practice the art of deep listening with them. And they are going to get from you that you are doing something for them that they're going to find quite meaningful. And they'll want to know how to do that. They're going to want to know how you did it, how you do it, what techniques, what tactics are you actually doing to be able to hold space for them. Modeling, for human beings, modeling is the most powerful way that we can influence behavior. And this is why, for me, this idea of being a change maker is so important, because it's not about the impact of specially talented people or specially committed people. This is something we all have inside of us innately, and all it is about turning on our intention to hold space and listen to another person. That is what happened. That's what changes, for instance, this current climate that we're in right now of polarized debate and polarized opinion. I can disagree with someone, but I can still appreciate and listen to them and appreciate their experience that has brought them to that point of view. And I can still disagree. I don't need to agree, but I might be able to align to different parts of their journey that I can see brought them to that point of view. And so we need to sort of rediscover this way of holding all that space for each other.
Thank you, Dale. I think it's a really interesting response about, the modeling. If you're working with somebody who could feel like they could benefit from these tips that you're giving, and besides sending them a link to this webinar and saying, I think you should watch this, maybe being intentional about, even if it's for a couple of weeks, just really being committed to a practice of listening and being really clear on what are the steps that you're taking, so that if this person were to ask you, what are you doing? Or maybe you can offer it a little bit, you can be really clear in utilizing a technique of sorts or a process of sorts to be very intentional in how you're interacting and how you are listening, and see if that person has seen a difference or what their experience is when you do these steps.
You'll notice, I think in my experience, you'll notice within the first few interactions, you'll notice a shift in that person. They will be more relaxed. They'll be less guarded. They'll be certainly more curious about why you're doing what you're doing. You'll see people respond so positively. It's almost like they get switched on when they've had the experience of being listened to.
Wonderful. You've answered a couple questions just in your last statement. I know we had a question about How do you do deep listening when you disagree with what's being said, and you intuitively just responded to that in your last comment? And there was a question before around how do I be present when anxiety is interfering with my ability to listen, and that might be a
Mm,
question that you get from time to time. I know that.
absolutely. Absolutely, it is. Anxiety is, without speaking to what I understand about what is triggering my anxiety. So to talk about it in general terms, um, I know for me personally, my anxiety when I experience it is typically because I'm holding myself up in some kind of a comparative structure where I feel like I can't be myself. That tends to trigger my anxiety. Um, that's my number one trigger. And my second would be that um, I'm too consumed in my mind, or my mind is too consumed rather with something that's happened in the past, or it's future thinking. It's putting a lot of energy into wrestling on some detail about something that may happen in the future. Those are my two strongest triggers for um, anxiety. And what I do is that I make an agreement with myself. And the agreement I make is, okay, Dale, you're feeling anxious right now. And I might even give it a scale. I might say, wow, this is kind of an orange alert moment. This is really a tough moment. And we're going to get to that anxiety. We're going to get to, I'm going to feel that anxiety. I'm going to honor it, but not right now. Because right now, what I want to do and what I really intend to do is to actually listen. So I don't deny what I'm feeling. I don't disassociate from it, because that tends to drive up anxiety even more. It becomes like a young child having a tantrum. If I try to pull away from it, it only gets louder. I acknowledge it. I say, yeah, okay, I'm feeling anxious, and I'm going to come to this. We're going to spend some time. We're going to figure this out, and we're going to express this, just not right now, because now is about listening to this person, and that's what I really want to do.